Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. I'm doing a series of spotlights on remarkable advisors from across the country and even in your town. Joining me on this segment from Cleveland, Ohio are Tom Jenkins and Andy Cohen. They're the co-founders of Elder Fighters. Tom, Andy, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about your work, and specifically, who are the types of folks that you specialize in helping?
Well, as the name implies, Elder Fighters, it's a senior community. What we do is try and help seniors on a variety of different levels. It's a combination of finance, a little bit of safety, a little bit of health. And by putting all three pieces of the puzzle together and challenging our clients, we aim to optimize their best life.
So when they come out to reach you, I imagine with this particular special community, they must have like very specific challenges or things on their mind. What are the most common questions that you get from them?
Common questions. Basically, they don't know the complexities of how the various options that they've got. When you actually sit down with somebody and you talk about preserving their legacy and preserving their home and preserving their assets for their children, that it's possible to do that. If facing mounting costs in the healthcare system, for example, if you have somebody with dementia in your family, the term can be 8 to 10 years of dealing with that disease, and it can be $100,000 a year. So the downside there is that the cost could be $500,000 up. So there are ways we can help. Like I said, from a safety standpoint, from a overall health standpoint, and in this situation, in a big way, a finance standpoint.
We live in this world of too much information and information overload. Do you find that the reason people are confused is because there's so much misinformation out there? What are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions that might be keeping people stuck?
I mean, some of those simplest ones that we come across is people thinking that Medicare, because it is the elder health insurance, is the program that's going to help them when they go into long-term care, when it's actually Medicaid. And then there's what I would call biases against Medicaid because it is such a political program for the poor, that people don't understand that this is, while it's under the same heading, is a completely different part of the Medicaid program.
What about this recent pandemic? Has this affected or shifted any of the advice that you give, or is it merely just shifted how people are seeing the need? What has the pandemic done that you've noticed in your field?
They're more scared than ever. And there's options that, for taking care of people within their homes. There's options within in a facility. But they're just scared. There's no other way to describe it. Given especially right now, what's going on, people are just staying at home, scared to talk to anybody about anything. Yeah.
Now that people are sort of getting scared into action, so to speak, when you start to work with folks and look into what they've been doing or their plans, have you found any big glaring common mistakes people are making in their financial houses, or any pitfalls that you see them commonly falling into that you can kind of warn people about?
I guess probably the easiest one that people fall into is they start to give assets away to try and preserve them, not realizing that there's a look back period and that the government isn't going to just let you give things away and then say, okay, now come help me. Beyond that, I mean, we could spend an hour on this alone, but obviously people are concerned about the stock and the bond market and how the valuations have risen and fallen, especially again with COVID. There was that huge step down that always causes concern.
Tom, Andy, what inspired you to, get into this field to begin with and help people in this area? Take us back a little bit. Tell us how you got started, and then take us to how you started Elder Fighters.
Well, I know for myself, my mother was in a local facility, and the care wasn't all that outstanding at the first one. So eventually we pulled her out of there and put her in a different facility. And once again, it wasn't that outstanding. You only realize after the fact, and then she passed on a few years, after that. You only realize after the fact that there's a whole lot of things that we could have done differently, could have done better. If I knew then what I know now, she would have had a much better life. And this is even back then when I was trying to figure out how to help her. We went to a variety of different sources, whether it was the hospital, and asking them questions as to where would you go and how would you do, and so on and so forth. Anyway, we've got a lot more information, and we can help challenge them to think about all this in a new light, and once again, try and give them their best life.
Andy, same question. How did you get started?
Well, partly being pulled into it by Tom. I'm, I guess, in a different phase of it. I've got a nonagenarian father who very desperately wants to stay in his home, and working with him, trying to navigate what is safe and yet still practical for him to be able to stay in his own home environment. And, frankly, just our, greater circle of friends, we are in the age group whose parents are in the age group that need this kind of help, and just becoming more cognizant of nobody wants to talk about this, therefore nobody knows what they actually should be doing and what is in their own best interest.
Right on. Before I ask you my last question, for folks listening that know they need to get their financial houses in order and just don't know where to start, what would you tell them is the most important thing they should consider when choosing an advisor to work with? What do you find important?
Oh, that's kind of a loaded question, but clearly the first thing is an advisor who's looking at their situation for them specifically, not an advisor who has a system and a program and just wants to fold you in. Individuals, particularly when they get into the latter portion of their lives, need somebody who can look at them as an individual and set up a program that's going to help them specifically, as opposed to just trying to grow the assets.
I appreciate the insight. So for folks listening that would like to speak with you, how do they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Well, our website is elderfighters.com. And if they want to give us a call, it's 985-FIGHTER is our phone number. That's 985-FIGHTER.
Awesome number. I like that. Andy, Tom, this has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insights with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a blast.
Thank you very much.
Tom Jenkins and Andy Cohen, they're co-founders of Elder Fighters, and this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals finally get their books done to educate consumers, grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.